Yo, what's going on? Superkick here, and in today's video we're going to go over some wrestling figure news. Now, before the video starts, I would just like to ask you all to leave a like and subscribe on this video if you enjoy it, and to go check out my gaming channel, Black Mask. The link will be in the description. Now, with that being said, on to the video. Alright, so to kick off our news today, WWE was doing crowdfunding project, as you can see, 28th of 2025. That was when it ended. They were crowdfunding. So basically that means that you're going to have to pay well, they haven't crowdfunded yet. They're voting on what to crowdfund next. So basically that means like Kickstarter type thing, Has Labs type stuff. If you pay like $200, you'll get this. And then, if it raises enough money, you'll get like an add-on or something. So this was the vote. The Cell, the Punjabi Prison, the Elimination Chamber Classic, the Modern, which there is a difference. I would just like to point it out. The roof is more domed on the Classic, whereas it's more straightened out. And also the chamber itself is a little bit bigger. As you can see, this is just one big rectangle. These are, this would be like where the rectangle ends, like right there. That would be where the original ended. So they extended it quite a bit, so you could actually do, high flying moves off it. And then the steel cage as well. Now there is a note here that says the project will not include a wrestling ring. That these are just meant to be add-ons to the existing Mattel scale rings on the market. Now what that means is pretty much you're gonna pay $200 and you're not gonna get a ring with that. You're just gonna get the plastic cage, and that's probably about it. On to other news, we have AEW Unrivaled 17 photos. Let's see. So first we have Swerve here. They got double jointed arms, double jointed legs, diaphragm joint, kind of like a WWE Ultimate figure. And then they got waist swivel. They got thigh cut. I think some have boot cut. And then they got like a ball joint in there. I just want to break down the what is it, joints of them. I don't think they have rotator cuff, at least not the ones that I have. The ones that I have don't seem to have rotator cuff, but we'll see as we go. Yeah, no, they don't have no rotator cuffs. It's just that arm there that can like hinge up and down. But I'm more focused on the head sculpt because the articulation is pretty good on AEW figures, with the exception of the diaphragm joint sometimes being very loose. The bottom part might pop off, or the top part might pop off a lot. But I want to focus on this head sculpt. That does not look like Swerve whatsoever. Honestly, I do not think it looks like Swerve at all. I honestly think that it just kind of looks bad. Now, let's scroll down. As you can see, here's the other people. They show a thing of Nana's coat, but if you look in the thing, there's no Nana's coat, and this is what's going to be in box. So, I couldn't tell you. Next, we have Christian Cage. Christian Cage's head sculpt looks really nice. We have him out of the box here, actually. The turtleneck, I believe that's going to be the turtleneck. The turtleneck seems to be cloth as well as the jacket. So you might have I'm going to assume there's going to be the shirtless Christian Cage under there and not turtleneck Cage. I'm going to hope that these are two separate pieces, though, so you can, have him with just the turtleneck like how he does in the actual matches. Now, what I don't like about Christian is right here. Look at this. His body is so weird. He looks like he's leaning forward trying to do the Michael Jackson. It is just a very weird pose. And it's not even intentional. That's legit just how he is. This looks like they need to put like pegs on the bottom for him to stand there. Because he should not be standing up straight. So I will say that is a problem that I have with some AEW figures. They just cannot stand up straight. Some of them you need to, support. Now, I would like to point out that these are not pinless. And the only reason I point this out is because the Supremes are. I've looked at some photos of Supremes, and they are pinless. Whereas the standard, like, $20 figures are not pinless. WWE, the Elites are pinless, the Ultimates are pinless, I personally don't care about pinless figures versus unpinless figures, pinless figures versus, figures with pins. But, Some people do, so I just wanted to make that distinction now. Again, you should get a good range of motion on that ball joint up there. It's not going to be the best, but if I compare it to, the AEW figure that I got here, let's look. Eh, you get a good range of down, and then depending on the person's hair, I'm using an Adam Page figure, so you're not going to get the best up with him, but, Christian's got short hair, so you're going to get good up with Christian. Now, let's go down. You get Cope. Cope is a 1 out of 5,000. Terrible name, I would just like to add, but this is at least Adam Copeland, so you don't have to do just Cope on the thing. But this is a 1 out of 5,000. This is going to be like a chase figure here. Honestly, it is the best head sculpt I've seen on an Edge figure. Usually they're always wrong, they always look off, none of them look right, but this one finally looks, legitimately like Edge, so I'm perfectly fine with that. You can see on the back, here's all the people again. The back is always standard, but I would assume that this has something to do with the chase. They don't have the actual figure, all they have is the chase, so I would not know how, what he is, what he looks like. Now here we have Willow Nightingale. As you can see, another diaphragm joint there, I think under there, and then there's the waist swivel there, so it's like a weird mid-sized joint there. It looks weird, but it'll function as intended. Again, double jointed elbows, double jointed elbows, double jointed legs, Then you get, I think there's boot swivel there. You get, hinge feet and stuff. The wrists are on hinges as well, as you can see there. Shoulders, same thing. You get shoulder swivel, and then there's thigh cut. You can see it better on Willow Nightingale than anybody else, because you can see like the line between the legs, whereas it's kind of hidden with Edge by his box. Christian, you can see it real well. You can see it in action. Christian, they decided to pose, with his legs widened, and you can't really see it on Swerve. But with Christian and Willow Nightingale, you're able to see it pretty well, so you can see that there is, thigh swivel there. Should be a good figure, articulation-wise. I don't like the head sculpt on this. I don't think that looks like her, especially comparing it to the face down here. But honestly, I think the chase looks a lot better. But that could just be because it's the same head sculpt, just tilted. Maybe you gotta see it head on, And this is just a gold version. I like how AEW does their rare figures, where it's an entirely different pose, different outfit. It looks really nice, and I really like it. But it's just the same thing. Now, Killswitch. I have a problem with Killswitch's figure. First, again, the weird mid joint. Why is it so small? And then the dusty mask. That's my main point. The dusty mask. Killswitch looks like you took him and compressed him down. Like, his legs are so massive, and then his torso is like nothing, and then his head's just there. There doesn't seem to be like a neck. And, that's how Killswitch usually is, or Luchasaurus. But, like, bro, you could have extended his proportions on this a bit. Especially since his arms look kind of like goblin arms, Like, he's got small body, small legs, but he's got, the longest arms in the world. That's kind of how it looks to me in box. But once it's out of box, it might look better. It could just be the posing in the box. But it has standard AEW articulation. So it should be a good figure articulation-wise. But honestly, the mask and how it just looks, I wouldn't buy it. I want more like this. Like, why is it not red? Why is it gray? And then you get... Oh, I just realized that he just straight up wrote Killswitch there. Alright, and then we get Ricky Saints, or Ricky Starks. I don't like the head sculpt necessarily. It looks weird. Kind of looks skeletal than anything. Honestly, if you're going to want a Ricky Starks figure, just wait for the WWE Elite version to come out, because that one's going to be more modern, unless you want an AEW version, and then you should buy, an AEW figure, because that's, it all depends on who you're planning on displaying them with. Are you going to display them with WWE guys or with your AEW guys, So, if you want an AEW Ricky Starks, this will do, it's kind of his, like, last outfit, I guess. Got the vest and stuff, got the trunks, that's all there. The chain's not there in the photo, but the chain is there on his neck. You know, I wish it included like a microphone because Ricky Starks is good on the mic, you know. Maybe a microphone, maybe one of the tag belts, you know. Just a way to get one of those tag belts in there. But again, standard AEW figure, just Ricky Starks. Nothing to really write home about, but it's nothing to complain about either. Next, Kerry Von Erich, Bruiser Brody, Haku, and Tonga Kid will be getting big rubber guys figures. These things are basically like Stretch Armstrong type deal. Is that okay? That's just straight up Danhausen. Danhausen will also be there getting one of these. I would assume these are either like a Stretch Armstrong deal or like a squishy, like a stress ball, you know? That's kind of what these seem to be. No articulation in them, but they look nice. You know, if you want to like display them on your shelf or something, I think it'd look really nice, you know? So if you're going display wise, I'd get the big rubber guys. If you're going like articulation wise, they're not articulated whatsoever. Just word to the wise. Now, the Jazzwares Vault is releasing a new version of FTR. As you can see, it's FTR with the Ring of Honor belts. You know, honestly, it's same figures as always. You know, double jointed. You know, hinges on everything else. Die cut, boot swivel, all that stuff. All that great, glorious goodness. Now, I would like to point out one thing. Look at Cash Wheeler's face, and then look at Cash Wheeler's head on the thing. That does not look like him whatsoever. Mans doesn't even have a receding hairline here, but dear God, did they make him recede there. It is far back. It's like a KSI type forehead, bro. Like, that is awful. And I just don't think that they look very accurate to how they look in real life, you know. I would like to point out, you know, in specific him, Cash Wheeler does not look like Cash Wheeler. Dax Harwood, again, even something as simple as the mustache is still wrong. You know, his mustache is brown. It looks to be a lot darker there. You know, even a little bit of a darker brown would have done a little bit of justice there. I'm not saying it's going to be like pure black, but it's got to be at least a little bit darker because that's kind of how it is there. But then again, that it does have a filter on it, so you know, I wouldn't know. You know, I'm not Dax Harwood. I wouldn't know what color his mustache is. You know, but I'm just saying for a guy with like no detail on his face, you gotta get like one detail right, and it's the mustache. You know, but that's just me. I think that they're not that accurate. If you want accuracy, honestly, these are not there. These are not accurate. But if you're just here for, oh, I want a figure of, you know, of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, then these are perfectly acceptable, you know, and they get you the Ring of Honor tag team titles. So, hey, you know, pros and cons in every way. You know, different things for different people. Now, let's show this. Kenny Omega and Ricky Starks as Walmart exclusive figures. Now, again, if you want a Ricky Starks for AEW, I'd skip out on the other one and get this one because this one just looks a little bit better. We don't have a photo with those off. I've went through this a bit. Oh, no, we do. Okay. The head sculpt is a little bit better. I thought I went through it. I didn't go through it good enough. You know, the head sculpt is a bit better on this one. I kind of like how this one looks a little bit better than the other Ricky Starks. This one looks a lot better. Kind of looks like AJ Styles, too. If you take the Ricky Starks head off, I bet you can make a good AJ Styles out of this. You know? And then we got Kenny Omega, standard thing, double. You know, swivel, diaphragm, ball joint, you know, hinge, shoulders, you know, all that stuff, all that great, glorious goodness. And, you know, it looks like Kenny Omega. That's a pretty good Kenny Omega figure, honestly. If you want a Kenny Omega, I'd recommend this one, you know. Unless you want young Kenny Omega, then I recommend the Ring of Honor one, because he kind of looks like Napoleon Dynamite there. But, you know, this one I would get, honestly. I kind of like this Kenny Omega figure. I definitely like this Ricky Starks figure. If you're into the Jazzwares line and you like how those figures feel a lot better, and you're into AJ Styles, you could probably get an elite of AJ Styles or like a $10, you know, basic AJ Styles from, you know, wherever you're at. And then pop the head off with a hair dryer, stick it onto this, and you might have, you know, an AJ Styles. Hopefully you don't have to do any like color matching or anything, because I could not help you with that. I am trash with like color matching on figures and stuff. I just kind of, pop heads off and hope. Now what rhymes with hope? Cope. Adam Copeland gets another figure and so does Christian Cage. I don't like how Christian looks like Pat McAfee there. That's just kind of weird. But, and also that does not look like Edge for a single second. But these are renders, so I'm not going to complain too bad. What I am going to complain about is the fact that there is no neck leading up into either of these two. Like, this one has a turtleneck. You could claim that's covering the neck, but no. Cope looks like he got stomped on by Mario, bro. I'm going to hope that they show actual figures of these and they have a neck, because otherwise it's just going to be no neck Cope and no neck Christian. Now we have some reveals here from Mattel Creations. There's a Scott Steiner Ultimate. That's actually really cool. A nice looking belt here. The heads look good. Honestly, if there's like an accurate Scott Steiner one, it's this one. They don't have an angry enough face for Scott Steiner though, with the shades. But honestly, I like it. I think it looks good. And then next we have CM Punk from like 2007, as you can see by the ECW belt. He comes with a shirt. I wish the Scott Steiners came with that shirt that he has on there, but that's perfectly fine. These heads aren't the most accurate in the world, these two. I like this one the most. I think this one looks a lot like CM Punk. But honestly, it's an ultimate. The WWE Ultimates are really good. I've enjoyed every one that I have, and I have like two. That's all I got, because you gotta find them. But these Ultimates look really nice, and honestly, they feel really nice. I wish that AEW sold things that were like the quality of these Ultimates, because these things are great. Now we get another Taker Ultimate. Now I'd like to just say, it doesn't look to be a diaphragm at all there. That looks a bit weird to me. Like, there's a line, but it does not look to be a diaphragm. That looks to be more of a wrinkle than anything. I don't know if those elbows are double jointed. I'm going to assume they are, because most Mattels are double jointed, with the exception of the the like basic ones. And I wish there was an unmasked head to this, because there's an unmasked, but it has hair in its face. I want it unmasked with the hair like this or like this. That's what I want. Something like this for this, so you could actually use this mask for some, because you could use it there, but you got the hair in the way, But it's not a bad looking figure. Standard things. It seems to be pinless, double, and then there's like usually there's a rotator cuff there, right? Yeah, there's a rotator, and then there's a ball joint leading into the arms there, and then the legs. They usually have a thigh swivel. That one does not look like it has a thigh swivel cut into it. But again, these are renders, so they might have just not done all the things. But it's weird because they did it on Phil and they did it on Scott, but they didn't do it on him. So, that's why I'm being kind of wary. There's bicep swivel on them. They have, ball jointed arms, rotator cuffs usually, which is good. The ball joint heads. You can't really get much on the ball joint heads because these are big figures, so you gotta have big necks, so it's kind of hard, but you could get a good enough range of motion for up, but you can't really get down. I'm gonna be honest, if they have a beard, you're not getting any sort of down. So maybe like Scott might have a problem, but Phil, you're not really gonna have a problem. Taker, you're gonna have a massive problem. The man has hair, so you're gonna get like nothing with that head. But hey, if you like this style of Taker, you might like this figure. It's gonna be detailed, It'll probably look really nice on a shelf, but honestly, if you're going for like having him look down at somebody, you're not getting that man to look at all. He will not be able to look any way besides just pure straight. Now, as we scroll down here, WWE Retros, Bobby Heenan, Ultimate Warrior, Virgil and Harley Race, King Harley Race at that. Comes the crown. The crown I don't believe is removable. I don't think anything on these is removable. So you can't take like the stacks of cash of the crown and put it on somebody else, unfortunately. We have Dusty Rhodes and Cody. I would have loved to have like a Goldust there too, have like 3 different Rhodes in it. But, these are nice. You can put these on a shelf and they look real nice. You can't use this belt for anything else, which is kind of, is disappointing, but hey, That's how it is, unfortunately. So, sorry. I'm not going to show that guy's link for his, what is it, for his, like, partner program with them, because that is free promotion, and I do not do that. Now, also in the Jazzverse Vault is an Orange Cassidy figure. Now, this is made to look like his Titantron. It comes with a cloth jacket, beautifully detailed to look like paper, as well as the figure also beautifully detailed to look like paper. Honestly, this is the one time I like that that I wish that the pins were highlighted. I like pins on figures. I'm fine with pins on figures, but I don't want there to be, highlights to the pins. But this is the one time I want that because I want it to look like a figure. I want it to look like a drawn figure, and I would like the highlights onto the pins. But honestly, it's not a big deal if they're not there. What I'm mad about is that they don't sell this ring. They do not sell this black and white ring at all. They don't sell the black and white crowd there. None of the background is for sale, unfortunately. Literally just this figure. Now, the International Championship comes with him, and it just says International Championship and has AEW on the side plates. That's it. He comes with 3 hands, as you can see in box. Why not 4? Honestly, just give him 4 hands, but alright. And I'm going to assume that's a bag of chips, because I could not tell you what it is. And then he comes with the sunglasses that come on him. These are not extra. These just come on him in box. Honestly, this is a really nice figure. This is not a wrestling figure though, That's the difference. The rest you could play with, beat around, and it'd be all right. This one you're going to get so much like paint rub on it that I would just honestly advise you if you're going to buy this figure, because it is really nice and it looks really, really good. And I could only imagine how amazing it'd look on a shelf. If you're going to get it, don't let it hit any other figures. Do not try to play with this, because this thing is pure white, and that's not going to be fun to try to clean off. That's not going to be fun. There's Jeff Hardy Blacklight Edition. So I know Jeff Hardy's in, TNA, and this is an AEW figure, but if you want a modern Jeff Hardy figure, this is pretty good. Again, diaphragm, double, thigh swivel, bicep swivel, ball joint, hinge, hinge feet, all that greatness. And then you get an extra head with him too. Does he come with anything else? He comes with some hands, and that's about it. Just that. It's $46. Pretty steep price for just Jeff Hardy, just for it to be a normal figure. It's not pinless either, so it's the same price as a pinless figure, but it's not pinless. So just in case you want pinless figures, that he's not. Pinless he is not. It is also just an unmatched collection. So it's like their basic figure that they're just charging you like $40 for. But that seems to be because of the mechanic. You put in batteries into this, you turn it on, and then you get a little black light to shine on your Jeff Hardy. It's pretty cool. It is a nice looking figure. Honestly, if you're, needing a TNA version of Jeff, this is as good as you're going to be able to get right now. Until WWE comes out with like a Legends, version of them. Earlier this month, Walmart held their Collectors Con, March 14th. I'm very late to this, but I would just like to show off what they were, selling there. So they're selling a Stone Cold Ultimate, brings 4 hands. I think those are different. Yeah, so it brings 6 hands total, 2 cans, no label on them, 3 heads, pair of handcuffs, pair of jorts, and a tank top, as well as, the knee brace. Again, these are standard, double, thigh swivel, bicep swivel, ball joint, hinge, and then you get like boot cut, and then you can there's some toe articulation there. So, pretty good articulation. I know some of these have drop down hips, but I couldn't tell you if these have drop downs, so, sorry. I really do. The AEWs have drop down? I should have probably mentioned that in my AEW. No, they don't have drop down. I tried. I will break that figure if I try to force the legs. But this is a pretty nice looking figure. Honestly, it's kind of basic. No middle fingers as always. You can't really pose your Steve Austin like that. Nothing really to write home about. It's kind of basic. The heads don't really necessarily look like Stone Cold. Kind of look like Gilbert. Honestly, if you're going to use any of them, I'd use this middle one. Other than that, it's kind of a basic one. Doesn't seem to be any printing on the trunks here. No printing on the knee pads or anything. This is the world's most basic Stone Cold, and it was $33. Jesus. Now there's this one. This one's great. I thought this was gonna be a ringside figure. I didn't realize it was gonna be a collector con, so I didn't order it. Oh man, I might have missed out on this, but you know what? It's peak. So for the people that did get it, congratulations. It is a clear John Cena figure. Everything is cast in clear. The hat, the extra heads, the dog tags, and the hands. All of it is in clear. Honestly, I hope they re-release this at some point, maybe next year, with a cloth shirt, cloth shorts, the armbands and stuff. So you can have, and, a hat and dog tags. So you could have, the version of him in 2K23 and now in 2K25 of him with the shirt and stuff on so you could play a Super Cena. That would be legit awesome. And it was 23 bucks. Not bad. That's actually really good for an elite. That is standard elite pricing. This one here is 70, and it's the awesome truth. I don't know if, there's some scaling issues here, but that could just be photo. R-Truth looks to be visibly smaller than the Miz, but that could legit just be because of how they size the things, because the hands look to be smaller too. So that could just be how they size the R-Truth image. But standard elite articulation, that is not a diaphragm. That is, the standard thing that's on Marvel Legends. The same articulation that's on Marvel Legends you're getting on elites. I believe these are also pinless. Some elites are pinless, some are not. I forgot to mention that. I believe most elites are pinless, but I wouldn't know. And then you get a Triple H. Honestly, this Triple H isn't really anything special. If you want a suited figure, just pop the head off and then you can put whatever head you want on that and swap the arms, because you're not really going to have to color match much there. Honestly, the reason you're getting this is more so for the awesome truth as well as for the belts. Not much, not worth $70. And why does Triple H have extra pointing hands? Why does he have those? What is he pointing to? Look at these belts. Like what? But okay, Here we have two versions of Muta. This is the first version. This is, I believe, the standard version. Yeah, I believe this is the standard version. The standard version has the NWO face paint, as well as pants with a design on it, NWO graphic tee, extra hands, and then the pants to the Build-A-Figure. Then, the Chase Muta has differently designed pants, which looks really nice. Different face paint, still the NWO shirt and all that, same pants. Then we have Albert. Why? Why, out of all the figures for the Monday Night War, did you put Albert? Did Albert help turn the tides in the Monday Night War? No? Then why is he here? But if you like Tensai, here you go. Here's Albert, You can have your Albert figure and you can, be questioned forever as to why you bought it. Who would pay 23 deluxe for Albert? This is like a, this is going to be in the clearance aisle. I can almost guarantee you $5. Okay, so we got the King here in his weightlifting singlet and everything. Got his crown, you got his, you got his vest here. You got some extra fists. These are not to him. These hands go to, the Build-A-Figure. But honestly, you could probably color match them and get them onto those anyways, It's a nice figure. Standard everything, It's very standard, elite figure. Hogan. Jesus. Hogan is built weird. That is weird. Why is he, triangular almost? He forms like a pizza slice, Like, it's at an angle, and then you got the, crust, which is rounded. It is weird looking. Yeah, these seem to be pinless here, as you can see there. There's double jointed. There's this joint that I don't know what it's called. Piece of the Build-A-Figure of Ted DiBiase. I think there might be boot cut there, but standard articulation. Comes with his feather boa. a beanie, a pair of sunglasses. The beanie is to cover up that awful skullet he's got. Nothing can cover up that terrible mustache and beard combo though. He's got a mesh shirt that looks like something that Jeff Hardy would wear, a weightlifting belt, and two sweet hands. Alright. And then you got this greatness, you know? So, for the collectors that wish to play with their figures, you got yourself a, nice looking Money in the Bank playset. And this is for, people who like to play with their figures, but also for children who would like to play with their figures. This is, a playset where you can have the Money in the Bank hang above so you can have your wrestlers, go and grab it. I wish that the Money in the Bank was a bit higher, so like the crane was a bit higher, so you could have your wrestlers actually stand on this top rung here to try to grab it, because as it is right now, your wrestlers just stand on this one, the second rung up to grab it, It's sort of a weird design. I wish that it was just higher up, but other than that, there's nothing really, I got really no complaints about it. It's a really cool looking thing. I can only imagine, setting up a figure or two of here, hitting like a superplex down onto there, and then pressing this thing to launch that middle part up so they can go up higher and get like an extra bounce. That is really cool. It's $40 for the ring, but it is really nice, I really like that. It really looks cool. Now, there's some, we have a render of Ahmed Johnson. This seems to be a render by Hastel Toys for their Ahmed Johnson figure. Now, let's look. Pinless, double jointed. Okay, so double jointed, pinless arms. I'm going to assume those are hinge wrists. There seems to be no rotator cuff. That might be a hinge there instead of like a ball joint. Well, would a hinge count? No, I don't think a hinge would count as a ball joint. I mean, you get like slight hinge from a ball joint, but I think there's a difference between hinge sounding like this. Let me just get this figure here. I think that's what a hinge joint would be as compared to this. That is the sound of a very tight ball joint on a WWE, Ultimate. That is not even me breaking the figure. That is me moving the figure. Jesus. But I think there might be a hinge joint there. I'm gonna say, but it could just be the standard ball joint. Because really, like the hinge, you can't really like move it freely. It just kind of hinges one way as compared to the other one there. Would this be like a ball joint? Yeah, this one doesn't even. No, this one has a rotator cuff. I'm trying to find something that doesn't have a rotator cuff, but all my figures have them. Like all the ones I have on hand right now have a rotator cuff. Let me look. I have a Marvel Legends figure. Yeah, no, that's a hinge, and you can't like move it freely. Yeah, no. Okay, so it's about there's a difference between them, slight difference. I'm gonna hope that's a ball joint, but it's probably gonna be a hinge because no rotator cuff. And you get diaphragm, you get the like whatever waist swivel. Big diaper on Ahmed Johnson here, massive diaper. Then you get legs that I'm gonna hope will kick up pretty high, because you want to be able to kick a figure with those. But Jesus, them legs is massive, bro. That is massive. You're not gonna have to worry about this figure falling. Actually, you are, because look at them tiny feet compared to the rest of the figure. Jesus. There's thigh cut. Okay. They have double joint here. I don't think there's gonna be boot cut because of the like weird angle that the boot is at. So you're not gonna be able to get like boot cut out of that. But they have hinge feet, no toe articulation there, but that's not bad. That's pretty good. And then there's some swappable wrists, swappable hands, and then there's, swappable heads. That's pretty cool, honestly. Hopefully it does come out, That would be legit cool. Then we have, okay, so these are just some figures that are now shipping. So, Will Ospreay All In, version of their figure. and a John Moxley, you know, one of their Supremes. That's pretty cool. And then there's some in stock alerts on Amazon, Jimmy and Jay Ultimates, as well as Phil. And then the entire line of 116 is pre-order now because, see, there's 2 to 7 ones. So, oh, there's 3 separate ones. Okay, well, yeah, but they're all on sale right now. You can pre-order them. Pre-order all of them on Ringside Collectibles. And let's check out this one here. Zombie Sailor Toys sets an on-sale date for their scale line. Let's see Bundy. Bundy has single jointed arms, hinge wrists, I believe. He has diaphragm, weird like mid diaphragm that cuts off halfway. Massive, absolutely like Goliath-sized diaper on Bundy here. I'm gonna be legit. I don't know what's going on in there. I think that's just standard, like just leg, then double jointed leg, then maybe boot cut, and then hinge feet. That's about it. I couldn't tell you if there is a neck in there. I think that's literally just head. So you might be able to twist that, and that's about it. So these figures will be coming out March 27th for the first set of 4. Now Bundy, I don't like how the figure looks. I think it looks weird. Honestly, you could probably take this and make a Wilson Fisk. Or if you want to make like a Taz, you could probably make a Taz. It'd just be a weird, like, misshapen Taz. But you also get JEFF, JARRETT. You can also get that there. Same single jointed elbow, which I don't like. I wish it was double jointed. You know, double jointed legs, diaphragm, you know, waist swivel, all that niceness, you know. But with Jeff Jarrett, you might actually be able to move his neck, because that seems to be an entirely different piece there. Yep, yeah, you can move his neck compared to his head. Now, I want to point out something here about these figures. Oh, wait, let's go up. Alright, here. Where is it? Yep. Bundy will join Jeff Jarrett and 2 yet-to-be-revealed wrestling stars in Series 1. They revealed Abdul the Butcher and Brian Pillman as first series figures, and they said they might have been moved to another series or just fully canceled altogether. Now, I want to talk about that, you know, a bit more. Abdul the Butcher. This is how that figure looks. He comes with a, you know, bleeding head. He comes with 2 extras, some hands, and a hand with a fork, as well as his headdress. You know, all that stuff looks nice. Is it a headdress? Hopefully. I would assume that would be the right name for it. It's a turban. Okay, sorry. It is a turban. He comes with a turban. What I don't like is look at the color difference from his head to his body. There's an entirely, like, massive color difference there. And these are hinged there. Let me see if I can find the, yeah, no, these are just single thighs here. And it's not pinless either. These are not pinless at all. But Abdul the Butcher was shown off, and then so was Pillman. Pillman single jointed, you know, singles, doubles on the legs. You know, okay, that is a... Why? That is a ball jointed thigh. Toy Biz style ball joint thigh. Big clown feet for him. You know, those kind of look big. But he does come with some nice accessories. He comes with a cane, he comes with his gun, and then he comes with some glasses, which, honestly, that's pretty good. You'll probably be able to find those on, like, Etsy, though. So, just buy them there, bro. Just buy, like, the Mattel, the Elite version of Pillman, and then buy the accessories on, like, Etsy. You know, support local creators and, like, small creators and all that. Let's see, what other wrestling news, like, wrestling figure news do we got? Okay, so you can pre-order Elite 118 as well as Elite 117. Okay. There's that. MJF Adam Cole Better Than You Baby 2-pack is on sale. So you could get MJF looking like Zack Ryder with orange hair there. Looks like a mix of Sami Zayn and Zack Ryder. It is so weird. And then Adam Cole looks like Adam Cole with a shrunken face. Like, you took his face and you shrunk it by like 50%, and then you popped it right back on his head. You know, that is kind of what that looks like. Now, this is a nice looking pack. I wish they came with the Ring of Honor titles, as you can see there, because, yo, you know, that would be really cool. But they come with the triple B, they come with the cloth jackets that they had, and 2 extra hands for Adam Cole, and only 1 extra hand for MJF, which I don't like. Come on, make it equivalent, you know? But then again, MJF does get the other accessory in the triple B, so, you know, can't complain all too much. It's standard, you know, diaphragm, double doubles, you know, all that, waist swivel, ball jointed head, hinge shoulders, you know. I'm trying to see if it's pinless for you. No, no, it's not pinless. It is not pinless, and you know what? Again, I don't really care about pinless versus unpinless, but I know some people do, so I like to point it out. Because, you know, hey, everybody's got different ways that they like their figures to look. There's a massive gap back here. But you know what? That's alright, because, you know, you gotta have some room there to move the head back. So, alright, you know. Adam Cole's going to be a nightmare to move that head back into like a looking up position. Look at this. His hair, I can already tell, is going to get so in the way. But, you know, it's not bad looking there. That's pretty good looking figures. I like how the, you know, I like how the AEW figures look. I like how they handle. I just wish that they posed a little bit better. You know, like the articulation should be good on them, but sometimes, you know, the diaphragm and stuff, it falls apart and it just becomes a mess. Now let's see what's on sale on Mattel Creations. You know, this was posted yesterday. The sale will last until tomorrow. Okay, so you got like a 1-day, 2-day sale of this for this stuff. Now let's start with the WCW Nitro ring as well as Eric Bischoff. You get an Elite of Eric. These are very detailed. This comes with, you know, cloth banners, you know, the steps. It comes with wooden boards to put under, you know, nice cable ropes and stuff to, like, feel like ropes. Everything feels really nice. It is just a downscaled version of a wrestling ring. So it's really, really nice, really deluxe. And it comes with this really nicely detailed version of Eric. I don't know if you see, you know, like, kind of like the dry brushing on the pants. That's actually really cool. I like that, you know. That is 112. Pretty good, because I think it's usually like 140. So that's not bad. Then Million Dollar Man and Ricky Steamboat Ultimates. This is pretty good. For $56, you get, you know, a nice DiBiase figure, and you get a Ricky Steamboat. Now, this looks perfect for a basic body for a Mattel, you know, like, Ultimate figure. If you want to make something off this body, you could easily do it. There's nothing on these pants. You just pop the head off, and you can add whatever head you wanted onto this. You want to make, you know, let's say Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat 11, you probably can on this body. You know, because it just kind of looks like a spare body that you can make something on. So, honestly, that's a pretty good deal. But even if you're a fan of Steamboat, this is still good. You know, likenesses look really well. I like the cloth suit and, you know, like the suit pants and suit. Like the money stack, it is cool. Same articulation as all Ultimates, you know. And that'll just be for all the Ultimates we go over in this next section. And same with Brett and Jim Neidhart. You know, these are 56 as well. Pretty nice looking figures. I like how they scale together. They look really, really nice. Same with, again, George Animal Steel and Rowdy Roddy Piper. 49 for both those. Still Ultimates. And you get cloth, you know, pants. You get the cloth kilt and you get the cloth shirt with Roddy Piper. And then George Animal Steel, you just get George Animal Steel, you know. And so that's pretty cool. Jake the Snake, you seem to get Damien as well as the Jake the Snake figure, which is, you know, awesome because Jake the Snake is awesome, you know. And Ravishing Rick Rude, again, another awesome, you know, wrestler there that you can get a nice Elite for, both 49. And it's 49 for both, you know, 49 and 56 for both figures. It's not like you're paying for just one. So it's like you're getting two for the price of one and like $10 extra, you know. So it is really nice. Then you get the LWO pack. This is a 5-pack of Elites. It's on sale for $80, which basically means that you're paying for 4 of these figures. So let's say, you know, hey, I don't really want a, let's just scroll and Rey Mysterio. I don't really want a Rey Mysterio figure, let's just say. So it's like you're paying for these 4, the extras, you know, here, like, you know, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, Santos Escobar, and Zelina Vega. You're paying for all them. and you get, you know, Rey Mysterio for free. That's kind of how it works out like that. It's a pretty good deal. But, you know, hey, it's still 80 bucks. I just wish the Dragon Lee was there instead of Escobar, so it could be like an accurate version of the LWO. And then, you know, throw like Savio Vega and Bad Bunny in there since they're part of the LWO too. Since Backlash, when was Backlash in Puerto Rico? I don't remember what year it was, but since that one, you know, they've been there. Then you get a Legends of the Territories pack. I'm going to be legit. I'm not going to pretend like I know who any of these people are. I'm not even going to lie to you. But I know that it looks like the 10 pounds of gold belt. So, hey, if you're an NWA fan, of which I am not, you could use that and use that on like a 10 pounds of gold. Buy like an old EC3 WWE figure and slap that on it, you know, or something like that. If you want to give AJ Styles the NWA belt like he used to have in TNA, you could give him that, you know, or R-Truth, or, you know, Jeff Jarrett, stuff like that. Ken Shamrock, who I believe was the first ever TNA World Champion, you know, so you could do something like that. It's $64 for the Legends of the Territories. Then you have the Headbangers, an Elite 2-pack. For $40, you can get, you know, cloth shirt, cloth kilt here, you know, the championship belts, as well as both the Headbangers. That is pretty good, you know, it's just the same price as paying 2 for 2. And I think it looks really nice, you know, if you're a Headbangers fan, you're going to enjoy this, you know. And then you get Imperium as well, same thing, 40. I think this is just a way to get rid of all the extra Vinci figures, but hey, you know, if you need an Imperium to put with your Gunther, you got them, you know. They're on sale right now, so that's pretty cool. Then we get to the retro figures. You can get Wendy Richter, Big John Studd, Muhammad Ali, as well as Hulk Hogan for $48. Not bad, but, you know, it's got one bad thing in it, and it's Hulk Hogan, you know. Then we go down for $42. You can get Taker, Bear, Vader, and Lawler. You can get all of them for $42. Looks really nice. You know, I wish they would re-release a, you know, Paul Bearer figure, because I need one. Then for $42, you can get Lex Luger, Greg Valentine, Doink the Clown, and Tugboat. You know, these are all L-Jan style, like smaller figures. Honestly, it would be awesome to have like an army of those. And then also going $48 as well. Alundra Blaze, British Bulldog, Isaac Yankem, and Hickenbottom, you know. You could get a lot of nice figures like this and have like an army of them. And then that ring that they're, you know, photo shooting on, you could get for $20, you know, at the Mattel Creations site. Is it Mattel Creations? Yeah, it's Mattel Creations. You can get, you know, the ring for $20, and that is really nice. That is a really, really, really nice ring. And the last piece of news that we have is that at WrestleMania World, they will be revealing action figures on April 17th. You know, that could be April 17th, but it could also be from April 17th till April 2021. Maybe every day they will reveal a figure. But they will be revealing new action figures then. And I will be, you know, talking about what action figures they reveal, you know, when they reveal them then. So, you know, that, look out for that in the future. Now, I think that's going to be it for this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out.